Welcome to the Service MVP Podcast. This is where you go to learn how to use pure motive service to create higher value to grow your results. And now, here is your host, America's service sales coach, Joe Crisara.
Welcome to the Service MVP Podcast, and my name is Joe Crisara, America's service sales coach, and we are here today with my good friend and coworker, Donald Austin, and we are going to talk today about a subject called diagnosing the person and not just the system. Donald, welcome to our podcast and welcome to this live streaming event.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate you inviting me on and letting me be a part of this. It's exciting.
Well, Donald, we asked you for a subject that you were passionate about, and you were passionate about to be in balance of diagnosing people and diagnosing yourself. How would you define that, being a technician or a salesperson or a service worker who's in balance between those things? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, to define it as what's in balance, it's pretty simple, right? It's understanding that who I'm dealing with is the person. I'm not there dealing with a plumbing problem or an HVAC problem or an electrical problem specifically, right? The most important component of that system is the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's using it. So being able to get to the point where you understand that diagnosing that person and what's valuable to them or how they use the system, what's important to them, it's the most important thing you can do as a technician in the field, because otherwise all of your solutions are completely irrelevant when you get to that point.
Now, how many years have you been in the trades, Donald?
12 years.
12 years in the trade. And Donald was a call-by-call manager over at All City Plumbing here in near Rancho Cucamonga, California. And Donald, in your time managing service technicians and looking at them call by call, in the middle of the call, changing the course of the call before it's over, as you did, would you say that most of the technicians are out of balance where they talk too much about with the people, or they're too people-centered, or would you say they're more technical-centered and focus more on the problem? What would you say the average person, before they get training from you or before they get guidance from you, where do you think they're starting at? What's the starting point there?
100% technical. They want to be so techy because without the training, it's like a badge of honor that they wear to be able to go into a customer's home and show how much knowledge that they have on plumbing. They go in there and they talk about codes and product features and all these things that just tend to go right over a client's head. They have no clue what plumbing code is, So when they start talking about that, they kind of tend to lose them,
So you think there's a technical jargon that is pervasive in the industry, and even technicians resist the I call verbal packaging in that element of it. How important of a service is verbal packaging versus using the technical jargon? Can you tell us about how that impacts the level of the service that the client receives?
It's a massive impact. If I came to somebody and I tried to offer them a solution based on technical jargon, code observations, installation error, and I focused all my solutions based around that, I'm not going to get very far, because without having that knowledge, nobody can really care about anything like that. So if you're trying to be successful in this industry, in this career, right, you have to shake that. Like, for example, you would be surprised how many plumbers go into the customer's home for a water heater issue, right, and end up telling them all the cool features about the new Noritz Easy TR50 tankless water heating system.
Yeah.
All these gallon per minutes and
BTUs,
and it's just I know plumbers who don't know what any of that stuff is.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's the thing. They regurgitate it as if they would know how. Actually, if you tell them, well, define what the word BTU means, and most people wouldn't even be able to know. It's a British thermal unit, right? So the bottom line is that it's confounding, and people resist it. But I always say that the first thing you can do to connect is to make sure that you're simplifying the language, speaking in the customer's language rather than speaking in your language. Like if you went to a different country, you would everybody would be what do you call it? They'd smile. Even if you see a foreigner trying to speak English and they get the words in English, you can definitely feel how hard they're trying, and it makes you admire that person more and want to help them in a way. Does that make sense there?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing where, what we're supposed to do as a service provider, right, is make things easier, make them more simple for the customer, not make this a head spinning homework assignment that they're going to have to think about for hours and days just to try to translate the words that we even said to them when they were in their house. We're supposed to put this thing sort of into layman's terms for them so it's easy to comprehend, easy to grasp, and they can understand how this is going to impact their family for the better.
So you would say the technical considerations or focusing on the technical problems and technical solutions is what most people start out with, and then they wind up moving toward being more in balance between the people versus the technical problem. Because what's the rule there, Donald, between the technical problem and the people? What's more important?
The people. And it's funny because when you see guys start to understand that, right, how much more important it is to have rapport and a relationship going with their clients. Oh my gosh, it's a hard time trying to rope them back into finding the balance and the adverse because they start to have so much fun getting to know people and people just fall in love with them and they have a great time. And then they almost forget that they're there on business.
Yeah, I have a saying. I say people are more important than things. That's one of the things I always start out with. That the thing like a water heater, a faucet, igniter, gas valve, circuit breaker, electrical panel, the meter box, whatever it is you're looking at, those things are worthless without the people who use them, right? So for the technician who starts out of balance, and then goes to the point where he starts recognizing, yeah, if I don't start recognizing the people in the equation, at least be 50-50, right? Where have you seen the best technicians? So people who are high performers, where do they wind up in that equation? So let's say it's maybe 20% people and 80% technical when they start out. Where do you think it winds up uh, for the average person? And then for the premium provider who gets great results, what do you think is the percentage of talk time about the people versus the technical issue with the high performer? What would you say to that? Because you've seen all of it, right?
Yeah, well, with the average, right, the untrained person who hasn't had any experience to this, I would say that it's probably the opposite, right? You're going to have them, 70, 80% is all going to relate back to technical.
Hmm.
That's their whole process is the diagnosing and then explaining their diagnosis, explaining the products, explaining what should and shouldn't be, to meet code, that's that ratio there. But
And then once you get some training, people wind up in that, would you say 50-50 would be a good place to start in that element of things there?
actually, I'd say it goes a little bit more than 50-50 towards the person,
It
right?
does.
Yeah, I see the most successful, they'll probably be more 65 to 70, right, on the people aspect, and then the other 35% is probably on the technical.
And how about the best salespeople, the people who do the far best? Is it 80-20 or 90-10? What would you say it
I
would
would
be?
say it'd be 80-20.
80-20 would be a good equation there?
80-20, because you don't want to leave out any vital information for the homeowner, right? You want to touch base with the client so that way you can help them understand, but it's very brief as far as hey, do you know what this is and what it's for, right? And they can they can answer it honestly and tell you, no, I'm not sure. What does that do?
Yeah.
You can give them a very quick summary on that, and then continue to educate them as to the way that it is now and that it's not how it should be.
So if you were going to go into a house, so let's say you're on a maintenance call for HVAC, for instance, your company does plumbing and electrical too. We have a question from the audience that says, how do you bring up other problems with plumbing while you're in the house with like an HVAC maintenance call? Focusing on what you just said, that 80% should be people. Do you think we start with the concern about the problem? Like, let's say we saw a problem with the water heater. You think we start, which most HVAC people would say, yeah, look at the black stuff coming out of the water heater, right? Or the water heater's leaking. They might talk about that first. Do you think it'd be smarter to start out with that, or start out with how people consume hot water and the people who do that? So in that thing, what would you favor if you're going to make that approach to try to transition from an HVAC guy looking at a furnace, but there's a water heater right next to it that's leaking? Would you talk more about the people, or would you talk more about the problem? What would you say?
Well, I would talk more about the people.
Hmm.
Because again, that's the most important thing, right? So if I'm an HVAC tech and I'm there doing a maintenance call or, doing my tune-up, and I happen to notice that there's an issue with the water heater, right? Water in the pan or something along those lines, I'm going to want to bring that up to the client. I want them to notice it, right? Shortly thereafter, I notice it, if not at the same time that I notice it. I want them to be there. So my reaction to that issue is going to pretty much mirror theirs oh, wow, have you noticed that water in that pan? And they say, oh my gosh, no, I haven't. And you can lean into that. Well, tell me a little bit about this. How old is it, right? How does the typical usage, apply for your family? How big is the family?
How important is the hot water? So if you were to say, like, we found this problem, and if you're going to focus on the people, let's say we tried to go 100% people on this, and I said something like, so Donald, I know I'm here for the HVAC tune-up, but I did notice a problem with the hot water system when I was here. I just want to make sure it's important before I bring it up. How important is the hot water to you and your family and your children and your spouse? How important is that to the family? How important is the quality of hot water for the family?
That's spot on.
Is,
So
would
spot
that
on.
would that be better if I said I noticed a little bit? So I did notice a problem when I was here with the hot water system. But before I go into it, let's just ask you a question. Is that an important factor? Like, important to your family and your two children and your wife and Susie? Is that important? The quality of the water and the safety and health of the water? Would that be something that would be important? Would that be something that would be a good? Would I be overdoing the people part there if I did it that way?
No, not at all. You'd be hitting it spot on because
Mm.
that's the most important factor, right? Knowing how important that is. And it can kind of seem as if that's like an obvious question, right?
Uh-huh.
But that's the purpose. It invokes them to tell you how important that is. So it's not coming off as if I'm just, trying to throw a bunch of things their way and a bunch of bad news, like I'm qualifying to make sure that this is even a relevant discussion to have with that
Mhm,
homeowner in the
mhm.
first place.
Right, right. So, that's really great. So let's go back to the very beginning about just connecting with people, because it's like every call has a story to it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like, there's always a story. Like, I got there, they wouldn't even talk to me, and then it's like a drama, really, right?
Yeah.
The first got there and we were a little bit cold to each other, and then I saw he's a Dodgers fan, and we talked about the Dodgers starting this year for baseball season, or he's a Rams fan or something like that, or whatever. You kind of open up the conversation. When you go there, what's in the tool bag? Because the thing called the halo effect, which science has studied, which is something that is just the best way to put it is, why do something about this guy I like. I'm not sure what it is. It's just like your body and your body's relaxing, opening up to the person. Your brain is less resistant to suggestions by the person. You're enjoying time with the person. Those are things that kind of typify the halo effect, they call it, that I really like this person in my house. I thought I was going to not like it, but then it turns out I actually like it. We've all been there before, going into something like I wasn't going to like it. And then maybe go to church, and I went, oh, I'm going to go to church. And then the pastor starts talking like, I really like that guy. And you start liking it, right?
Yeah.
What is it that makes us relatable? Let's first start with the very beginning of the call, when the on-site arrival. Is that too soon to establish what the level of connection is going to be when we first get to the house?
No, I don't think it's too soon, but I definitely don't think that should be the end of the road, right?
Mm.
I feel very fortunate that I learned at some point, right, and became comfortable enough with myself that I do not seek the approval of anybody, right? I'm so comfortable with myself, and I like to be my authentic self 100% of the time,
Hmm.
So knowing that, and I get like I think you put it the best, right? Is I'm gonna offer my friendship to somebody whether they accept it or not, right? That's not up to me to decide,
Hmm.
but I'm gonna offer my unconditional friendship to you. I'm gonna be my genuine self with you all the time.
That'd be a good affirmation, right? When you get to the door, it's like you're in the truck. Instead of thinking about, I wonder what's wrong with the water heater or furnace, you could say, you know what? I'm just going to give my friendship to this person before I start this call. I'm already going to give that friendship to them. I'm not going to have a need to be accepted. You could be an affirmation there, but I'm going to give them my friendship, and I will see if they accept it or not. I'm not
Yeah, I have to
even
bring
there.
comfort. I have to bring comfort to them, right? I need to show up and be able to be my genuine self so that way they can feel comfortable with me in their home. Any home service provider that's been there especially in the early stages, having that feeling of almost awkward tension,
Mm-hmm.
my client doesn't know me from Adam, right? And vice versa. I don't know them. So taking that time to really invest in getting to know each other, right, in the beginning of that call, that sets the tone for the whole rest of the visit. They got to be able to feel comfortable with me, because if not, how are they ever going to feel that they can open up?
Right.
They're never going to tell me about anything to do with their family or usage if they don't feel like this is a comfortable, safe space to do that.
Right. We do have some questions coming in, but I want to hold off on that for a second until I ask this next question. In the process, we talk about there's been studies by science that show that over 99% of the people who you ask who do I have the pleasure of speaking with, and they mention their first name, and then you ask, is it okay if I call you by that name? How important is it to break down the barrier by continually using the first name of everybody you talk to, and once they give you permission to use it, that we continue to use that first name?
Yeah, if I get their permission to use their first name, continue using that throughout that call, because it keeps you on a personal level. When I first started my plumbing career, right? The plumber that I was learning from, it was this gentleman whose name's Rob. He lived up in Big Bear, and he was telling me we were actually in a basement of a house, and he said, "Donald," and I looked at him, and he had my attention immediately, and he says, "I want you to know this. Everybody loves to hear their own name." He's like, "Watch, I'll do it with you the rest of every time." He said, "Hey, Donald." I was there. He had my full attention. I just like hearing it. So it's the same with other people. The more that you can use their first name, it puts this like a level of friendly familiarity to it. It's not so formal. It can be a little bit more relaxed and comfortable.
Well, you don't have to go very far in social media or in traditional media to find negativity from other people, right? It's impossible to navigate this world without running into other people who are negative. I know I have a philosophy which I don't participate in negativity. I just try to focus on the things that are good and let the negative things manage themselves. I'm going to manage things that I can work with, and not the things I can't, because I can't manage other people's negativity, right? But the thing with the first name, it's like if you were to meet a negative person, and it's not the only tool, obviously, but how important is that? Just the first name element of it to kind of helping kind of melt the ice a little bit with people on that element of things. What do you think on that?
It helps, because even though they may be negative, right, it gives them some acknowledgement, right? So it does help. It's funny. I had this job that I went to, right? It was for a maintenance call. So I went into the home, the wife met me at the door. She was very friendly, right? Opened right up to me. We were hitting it off really well, and we're going around the home. And the husband, he was more of a, just secluded kind of guy,
Yeah.
kept to himself, and he's sitting on the couch the whole time.
Okay.
Big gentleman, right? And so I'm going around with the wife, and we're hitting it off and having a good time. And there was multiple times where I would try to talk to the guy. His name was Mark, right? Multiple times hey, Mark, and just drop little things to him, and he would kind of, oh, okay, right, and real short, right?
Yeah.
And after trying and trying, I never gave up, right? I'm going to just continue being my authentic self. Whatever Mark had going on is nothing personal to me, He was in his own thing, but I didn't want to jump into the negativity with him, so I just continued trying to include him and involve him, right? Because he's so important to this process.
Yes, definitely.
And towards the end of it, right, where me and the wife are standing there in the kitchen and we're talking, and he came into the kitchen to grab something, and they mentioned something about what they're going to do this weekend, right? And it was something to do with wrestling. And so I started talking to him, and I asked him, "Mark, you like wrestling?" And oh my gosh, if he didn't just finally open up, right? That the halo effect took place. It always got to start opening it up, and being able to have like that magic moment with him, because he's going to take his son to, it was like a WWE wrestling match, and they were so excited.
What a great boring event for.
Right. And so I was able to acknowledge that with him and tell him, how lucky that his son is to have a father like him, because my father was the same way. We always watched wrestling. I'll never forget, doing SmackDown arenas in the middle of the living room, and just such a bonding experience, and it just opened it up for us to talk about that. And then from that point on, he was just so engaged with the whole rest of the process and was on board. And it took a lot of effort, I couldn't give up and be discouraged by his attitude earlier on.
That's such a great story. I mean, it's like so many times it's like a cellophane thin membrane that's between us and connecting. Like we can see that we probably have things in common with this person, but we aren't saying anything. We don't want to be abrupt and interrupt their lifestyle and things like that, right? And let's go over a little bit about that. It was a couple of things you hit there. One was the magic moment I heard you do, and another one is the different subject, like wrestling, which would be I'd say just be a fun activity that they do together as a family. What are the different categories to open up a conversation? Because I think today, young people and some old people, quite a few old people, frankly, they lack the ability to know how to begin a conversation with people. Obviously,
Yeah.
when you get to the door and you say, who do I have the pleasure of speaking with? And the name is Mark. Hey, I'm Donald. I'm here with my company. Thank you for inviting me to your house and all that part, right? So let's say that gets started. And then you're there, and what other subjects? You're mixing in some of the technical things, like tell me what's going on with a technical problem. The customer tells you that. Tell me about the people who experienced the problem or whatever. You can ask that question there too, right? So what are some of the subjects? We'll talk about that other thing about what the funnel looks like there a little bit. What kind of subjects do you kind of see that people light up when they start talking and it does achieve that halo effect? What are some things that people love talking about when you question them more?
So the things that I've noticed the most, right, and that is an acronym called FORM, okay? It's family, occupation, recreation, and material, right? If you focus in on those specific things, right? Things about their family, right? Who lives in the home, all these questions that they serve a double purpose, right? It gives me a good understanding of, to diagnose, but also understand them, right? So if I talk about their family, that's a really big one. Everybody loves to talk about
Yeah,
their
yeah, yeah.
family. Everybody loves to talk about their occupation. I mean, that's something that they've invested years of their life into, take a lot of pride in, and people light up when they have the opportunity to talk about what it is that they do for work.
There was a saying in the rest of the world, they work to live, and then United States, we live to work. I mean, everybody loves working. The whole country goes into depression if the job percentage goes above 6%. Like there's 6% of people unemployed. Oh my gosh, how are we going to solve that problem? We definitely put a high value on the occupation that somebody has. Not necessarily what they do for a living, but that part of it. So what do you do for a living would be a great question. So tell me about the family. Let's talk about open up the family. So family, occupation, and then recreation, kind of like that sport, that kind of wrestling event there. What do you guys got going over the weekend?
Yeah, whether it
Fun
be
activity.
fishing, riding motorcycles, going to SmackDown events and wrestling, or building things.
So the
They
material
have a
possession,
hobby.
so the material possession might be the motorcycle. So you wouldn't ask, you wouldn't just say. I would say statements end the conversation. So a very important part when you get to the point where you're doing family, occupation, recreation, and material possessions. Would you say that should all be formed as a question or a statement?
It has to be formed as a question, and you have to remember to be interested and not interesting. It's so hard for me because I love doing so many things, and I'm such a people person, right? That when somebody would start talking to me about their hobby that I'm super passionate about myself, it was hard to not take over the conversation and start talking about me and all the cool stuff I like to do and
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
unintentionally one up them, right?
Well, everybody has to stop and write down. It's be interested, not interesting. That's the way you put that.
Correct.
That's golden nugget number one from Donald. Thank you, Donald, for that one.
Yeah.
I might have to steal that and put it in my new book. I'm just teasing. Different phrases I've stolen from great people, and
Yeah, we'll turn it into a Joey the Mini Hat.
that's my new book. It's different phrases I stole from great people like you. So when you get the material possessions, it's important you don't say nice motorcycle or nice grill you've got here. You might say who rides the motorcycle or tell me about the motorcycle that you have here.
You wanna know what the best way that I learned to do that
What's that?
is to, and this is another golden nugget right here, was to ask open-ended questions, right? And I was, what is open-ended questions, right? It's
Point.
who, what, when, where, why, and how.
Mm.
If you start the question with one of those things, it creates the ability for them to have to respond with dialogue, right? It prevents those one-worded answers. So if I were to notice somebody's motorcycle and I could say, oh, who rides the motorcycle, or who's the motorcycle enthusiast, right? that opens up, oh, it's my husband, or, it's me, we love to go out on the weekends, right? It really opens it up for that. But always, if I'm going to be interested in something, right, you put it the best, right, to be a student. So I don't just want to point out how cool something is that they have. I want to be a student and I want to learn about that thing. Who uses it, right? Where do you like to go? What do you like to do with it? What was your favorite time ever doing that, right? Because that gives them the opportunity to really open up and connect with me.
Yeah, and there is other things. The form is a real simplified in nature, but if you see people doing service for other people or somebody who takes care of their mom, I always say the service part of their life, you're doing service for the client. How important is it we recognize when the client does service for someone too? Like you see a mom who's taking care of her daughter with the homework, helping the daughter with the homework, a service they're providing, or you see somebody who works at their church or something like that. How important is it to recognize, as you're a service person, you should be able to recognize the service that uh, clients provide to their community and their family. What do you think of that?
If you're missing that, you're missing the mark so tremendously.
Uh,
That's huge. What an opportunity to just be a light in somebody's day, to come shed a little bit of light on somebody that they do this all the time. They've probably been doing it for years. So this is just normal behavior in their world, right? And for you to come in and that be something new and just be blown away by that. Allow yourself to be blown away by that and acknowledge the impact that they're having on the community or other people, by investing their time. We all know everybody's busy. So them making that a priority in their life to be selfless and pour back into the community or in the lives of others, and to acknowledge that, oh my God, you would just be blown away by how impactful that is to people. It just touches them right and pulls on their heartstrings.
So if we were looking at questioning a material possession, like a piano or something like that, it's like, so who plays piano would be a great one. Or what inspired you guys to get a piano in your living room? That's an interesting piece of furniture. It's a great looking piece of furniture. What is that? What inspired you to bring that into your home? And then my daughter play. It could lead to one of the other. So one thing kind of leads to the other, right? Kind of leads back to people, right? Does make? So let's go start with the beginning of the form with the family. What are questions because that can be creepy. Like people do feel creepy who are service providers. Like, I'm going to feel creepy talking about their family. That's not a plumber's job or an electrician's job. We're technical people. We don't need to HVAC person. I got my thermometer and my meter I got to work with. I don't got a meter for people. So how do I diagnose the people? Because that's the point of the program, diagnosing people, not just the system, right? So what are some questions we can do that are non-threatening? I think first it's like, how do we kind of mix the technical and the people together to kind of start with that? What's a good question to kind of start with opening up to learn about the family and the people here?
Yeah, and that's the magical moment right there, is being able to find the way to make that balance. If you're asking open-ended questions, right, that's going to lead you right into that, to where my diagnosing question can actually turn into a lifestyle question all at the same time. So if I were to ask somebody, how many people use the system, right?
So how many people use the system? You have a question that's completely in balance. In a way, you're starting with the people, which are more important than things, but you are mentioning the electrical system or the plumbing system or the drain system or the heating system.
Yeah, it's
So
very
like
neutral,
there.
and it invokes them to tell me, right? Because it is a diagnosing question. There is no shifty ulterior motive there, right?
Yeah.
It's just it serves a double purpose. So them telling me how many people use the system gives me the ability to then ask, oh, really? Who all lives here with you, right? And they can start to tell me about how many members of the family that they have, right?
Yeah.
Do they have children or not? Dogs, they can start to talk to me about that. And then that's where I can lean, a few questions into, oh, that's awesome, you have children, or, how long have you been married? That's incredible.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I lean into that.
So how many people use the home? And then if there is a problem here, what kind of question? So you see the problem, the clogged up sink, or there's no heat, or electrical power's out in the bedroom or something like that. You're looking at the problem. It's so tempting to get into the problem and start explaining what the reason they're having a problem is. Would you recommend that we go in more into the problem, or now stop, we see the problem, and now focus on furthermore on the people? Like what other kind of question, once you're sitting at the problem, what's the next kind of question you could ask to open this up more even?
Who was it who found the problem?
Who found the problem?
Yeah, who found it?
So whoever found the problem, that would be interesting. And now you're getting personally introduced to that kind of a person there too, right? So what does that kind of lead us to? So when somebody says, "This is my wife who found the problem, Donald," and yeah, she was really upset. She might even say something like that when she found there was no power in the bedroom. She was a little bit stressed out when she had that problem, right? Furthermore, do you just kind of end the conversation there, or you continue that conversation?
No, and please, everybody, understand the importance of what you just said. Taking the time to listen when they tell you who found the problem and what that was like is so vital, because everything that we have to do in these people's home revolves around them. And if they're telling you how this has impacted them and you're so focused on trying to go figure out the problem that you missed everything that's how it's impacting them and affecting them, right? You're never going to be able to come up at the end of that and be able to offer them a solution to alleviate the impacting problems. So then what are your solutions based on at that point?
There's based on the technical jargon and whatever I thought was happening there.
Yeah. The
And
things that nobody cares about, I would talk about.
I'm not focused on how the people are going to benefit or how it makes the people feel bad when you have a problem and how good they're going to feel when they have a solution. Because the way people feel, the experience, which is the in-home experience they're going to get, is the golden thing people are paying for, right? I mean, people aren't paying for a part because how much is the part percentage of a call if you're a plumber? If I said how much percentage of the ticket somebody spends money on a full-blown tankless water heater, how much of the ticket, the money is going to be water heater versus the relationship with the company and the plumber and the work the plumber's doing? How much, what percentage is that going to be?
You'd probably be looking around 20% of the job.
At the most, right?
Right.
And so 80% of the job is going to be the people, both the client, the coworker, and the company who are going to stand behind this project. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely.
So who found the problem? And then next question, kind of open up to hear more about what the person said. What would you ask there?
What was that like when they found that?
Like, what would they say? So did you ask, like, what would you say, like, what did Julie say when she found this problem? Would that be important to hear what was being said?
Yeah, absolutely. To be able to open it up to help them kind of get into that, right? To relive that experience, whether it might have been a frustrating event. I always go back to this story, right? I showed up to this gentleman's home and it was for no hot water call. It was no obvious damage. They just didn't have any hot water. And so instead of rushing into the problem with the water heater, I was able to stop and ask, who's using the hot water the most, and finding that out. And he said his wife did. Okay, what's the typical usage that she's doing? Well, she's actually a nurse. And so every day when she gets home from work, she likes to come home. She's been just tapped out all day. So her favorite thing to do is she goes and takes a bath, right? And they have this big, massive bathtub in here, right? That's her favorite thing to do. So when she came home after a long day's work, couldn't take a bath or take a shower, oh my gosh, she was just upside down. And so obviously he said, I had to hear about that, right? Hence why you're here.
Yeah.
Solve the problem, And instead of just letting it run from there, right, I had to dig in a little bit more because, yeah, okay, everybody's going to use hot water, right? It's important. How does she use the hot water, right? The baths. And then instead of asking closed-ended questions like, do you ever run out of hot water? It was, how often or when do you typically run out of hot water, right?
Yeah.
And he was able to tell me, well, I usually hear her say stuff like, oh, I wish that either the bathtub was smaller or something, because every time I get to the end of filling up the bath, I run out of hot water. And then I can't even turn some more hot water back on to kind of rewarm it up. It's out of hot water by the time this big tub's full.
So letting people express themselves, which I think a lot of service providers misinterpret that. Like, I've heard a lot of plumbers or HVAC guys or electricians say something like, when's that lady going to shut up? She's trying to communicate and tell you about, what's it like to experience this problem in a way. So going back on those questions, we've got how many people use the home, who found the problem, what did the person say, what did you say, what did the kids say? And then finally that money question to find out kind of like what the emotional impact is. What again, Donald? You mentioned it before. What's it?
And what was that like?
What was it like? And that's kind of like the way to find out the emotional impact, that question there.
Absolutely.
Now, we get those words. It feels frustrated or stressful or I have anxiety because I can't take my bath or whatever. How is that inventory of information going to help us later on in the call? How's that going to be an asset for us?
Because at that point, I'm going to know who was affected, how they were affected, and what kind of solutions that I'm going to be able to provide for them that are going to be relevant and customized for their wants and needs,
Okay.
and bring something that's going to solve this problem for them and also bring massive benefits to the comfort and lifestyle that they have.
So when you're explaining the problems, is that going to be something that will be instrumental when you're explaining the problem with the hot water system?
No, because at that point they would have asked me to investigate, asked me to find a way to make these things better,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
So when you're providing solutions, how does that fit into it then?
It fits in perfectly because at that point now, instead of running into the conflict of, well, that's kind of a lot, or why are you offering me all these things? Like every single item that I'm going to be able to offer in that solution, I'm going to be able to preface it with, hey, I put this in here, right? Like let's say the tankless water heater.
Mhm.
I put this tankless water heater in this option for you because you told me how important it was for your wife to come home and have that downtime in the bath after work. You told me how running out of hot water seems to be an issue for that. I put this one in here for you because I want her to be able to come home, be comfortable. She can take as hot of a bath as she wants, as long as she wants. No other usage in the home could affect that or take that away from her moving forward.
Let's say I test you with something right here. Let's say I'm going to say an item, and I'll say the technical item, and I'll convert it with verbal packaging. You tell me the reason why it's important for somebody emotionally. Okay, how's that sound? You want to try this with me?
Sure.
We never practice. This is a live stream. This is like,
Here we go.
oh, you go. Are you nervous?
Only Donald the guinea pig.
Are you nervous? Here it is. There go. Yeah. So right now, I went ahead and did this endless hot water package for you, Donald, because, and then which endless hot water, of course, is tankless hot water. I did that because, and go ahead and finish the reason why you would give somebody endless hot water.
Because I know how important it is for your wife to be able to come home, take a hot bath, right? Not have to rush through that because the water's getting cold, not having to worry about running out of hot water anymore, or even having anybody else using hot water affect her in that. I put this in here for you so that way you can protect that little slice of heaven that your wife gets every day.
I did this water purification or carbon water filter for you and your family because why? What would that be important?
Because I know that you mentioned earlier to me that your son is suffering from eczema, and we wanted to remove these chemicals from the water to make sure that he doesn't have to suffer from that skin irritation anymore, have to deal with that self-conscious, having that out in the public, and just making them more comfortable at the end of the day. And then also it provides an extra protection for the plumbing system so you're not coming out of your pocket with a bunch of money fixing stuff all the time.
Yeah, and I also did the Wi-Fi connected emergency shut-off system that you can monitor on your cell phone. It monitors leaks and any kind of leakage on the system. I did that for you, Donald, because and then tell me why would you do that for somebody Wi-Fi connected?
Because I know that you told me that you work a lot, Joe, and you tend to travel a lot for work. And so the last thing that I wanted was for you to be in somewhere, Las Vegas or Connecticut or somewhere, right? And then get the call from the neighbor that there's a whole bunch of water gushing out from under the wall of your house, and you're states away and can't do anything about it in the moment, right? So I put this on here for you so you can have that peace of mind knowing that the house is going to be protected even when you're away.
Well, I hope everybody can see why this guy was a premium call-by-call coach and why he's considered one of the best out there. Donald, excellent work there. Well, I hope everybody got some golden nuggets from that little section. That might be one of the best things we've ever done on Connected to kind of show how that kind of starts from the beginning and kind of works its way there. This is really, I think, going to be a great one for everybody to take some golden nuggets from. Let's talk about magic moments, which is, I call it the heart of the total immersion system, which is to validate and recognize the effort people make. You want to go ahead and give us the formula for that? Tell us about, like, what's the first thing when we're trying to make other people feel good? Because making people feel good, the science behind it is, if people feel good, they tend to treat themselves to better solutions to solve the problem because they feel good about them. We don't feel good about ourselves. We're like, I'm not worthy of a endless hot water solution like that, right? So magic moments help us raise the esteem of our client just because it feels good for us and them, but it also has a science behind getting better outcomes financially on every call we do. So, what is the formula to the magic moment? Is it just something? Is it something that sounds good, but when you break it down, where does it start? Number one, with the word moment. How do we achieve that moment?
Well, I mean, it happens at any given moment in time, and if you're not aware, you'll miss it, right? All it really is it's having a heart. It's actually caring about somebody else.
Mm,
This is a selfless character trait that you have to have. You, I can't really stress how important this is. This isn't just something to further you in your career, right? To help you make more money. Okay. If you don't have pure motives behind this, you're never going to be successful at it. Okay. And I
mm,
can't stress that enough. Okay. You have to actually care about people and want to catch them in a moment doing something good. Okay. No matter the level of energy that they're having. If I meet a negative client, I don't let their emotion or their vibes dictate how I behave the rest of that call. Okay. I know that if somebody is in a negative time, that the best thing that I can do is show up, be their friend, and try to help pull them out of that. A great story. I showed up to a gentleman's house. I had moved to Phoenix, Arizona, and I had just started with a company called Gettle Air Conditioning and Plumbing. Right, I'm
yeah.
sure people recognize the name. And in my first week there, right, had a call, came in last minute, and they sent me to it for a water heater, but it was a warranty, right? Oh, we just recently did this water heater. Now they're calling about not getting any hot water. So anyway, I show up, very small thing it was super easy. It was a automatic shut off valve that trip,
Hmm.
you know. But I'm there and I'm spending time with the client and his wife and their friends, and we're laughing and having a great time. Okay. Well, fast forward a year later, I get dispatched to a call, and I arrive to this call and I say, oh, wow, looking at the history, I've been here before. So I show up and the husband comes out, right? And you could just tell that he was down in the dumps, you know, he had a big leak going on outside, but
Hmm.
you could just tell something was off, you know, and moving through that call and asking those questions, I could tell his energy was completely different from the last time that I was there.
Yeah.
So, at that moment, I just kinda put things to the side for him and said, "Hey, I know I'm the plumber, right? But I can tell there's something off here right now, you know, are you okay? You know, it seems like something's eating you up, you know?" And he opened up to me that, they've been having some troubles, you know, with their relationship, and they're
Mm,
possibly gonna be going through this divorce, you know?
mm,
And, you could tell it weighed on him so heavy, right?
yeah.
And, so what he's doing right now is trying to do everything he can with, therapy and things to rekindle and reconnect the relationship with his wife, and it's really hard, you know? And so, I just took that moment, you know, just to acknowledge that with him that, um, there's a lot of guys in the world who would just say, "Sayonara, I'm probably better off now." He's actually doing the hard work that it takes to work on his family, re-secure that relationship with his wife, and
Mm.
make things go for the better, you know? And when I acknowledged that with him, this gentleman, he opened up, he actually, like, cried, you know?
Wow.
So I gave the guy a big hug and, and
Yeah.
just told him, you know, your wife's really lucky to have somebody that cares as much as you do, that's willing to do that, you know?
So noticing the moment, noticing people are having a victory or a challenge that they're going through, and then saying, "Can I just say something? I know I'm just a plumber." That would be kind of like the opener. May I just say something? And then, looks like you're making a great effort to hold something inside. What's going on? Are you okay? And that part of it there, and he tells you and say, "Well, I can tell you one thing. Your family is lucky to have like somebody like you who's going through all this and internalizing all this stress. And it makes me feel good to be here to help you with it." And he gave him a hug, even make you even feel better, right? So magic moments can take place in actions or with those words like that, right?
You just have to mean it, man. Like, that's it. Like, stop focusing and chasing the dollar around to where you forget that you're dealing with the person. This isn't a dollar sign. They're not a money printing machine for you and your benefit, right? Like, these are human beings, and if you can remember that, you're going to be able to connect with these people a lot more, and you won't just fly right past the moments that they share these
Hmm.
kind of deep personal things with you. That has to be hard, right?
Yeah, yeah,
To share that with somebody. So blazing right past that and just saying, "Oh man, I'm sorry that that happened." Anyway, back to the leak that you're doing.
yeah.
You just totally broke their trust. They feel so so little now after that, right? They shut down. They feel, oh my God, why did I even do that? I'm embarrassed. I want to get this guy out of here as quick as I can,
I have a question from the audience, which fits this perfectly, actually, which is, what do you do when a customer thinks a solution shouldn't cost as much as it does? And you got a price here. I think the answer, though, is to refocus on the people. So if you had the magic moments, are the magic moments instrumental in creating value when people are questioning the value? And if you did the magic moment with a person like that, does it reduce the possibility they would complain about the price at that time and say, you know what, I was going to complain about the price. Like, I wasn't expecting to pay that much, but I'm not going to complain to Donald because he just made me feel good, or he just kind of comforted me through that. Is the magic moments and the way we connect with people instrumental in the value where the people we connect more with reduces the amount of customer concerns on price? Would you say that's a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only is it going to reduce the amount of price concerns you're going to get at the end of it, right? It never eliminates, but it's going to reduce it tremendously because they're going to understand why it's there and why the cost is there, right? But it's also going to put us on a level where we're able to reason and be real with each other. So when it gets to that point where they go, wow, I didn't expect it to be that much. Yeah, I didn't expect for you to show me all these problems that you're having either.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
when it comes to the health and safety of your family, you can't really put a price tag on that, right?
Like if you put it this way, if you're a plumber and the problem is that the customer's like, I can't get that toilet fill valve to work properly, and the customer is focused. He's got the tank open. He's looking at the fill valve. He may have even shut the water off because he knows what to do, and he's focused on the fill valve. And the plumber is also focused only on the fill valve. So both people are focused on the fill valve. What does a fill valve cost, Donald?
Probably like $10, something like that.
$9.95 or something like that. And it depends on which one you get, right? We get the really good one. It might be $15.
Yeah, metal shank on it. Yeah,
So
fancy.
the brass shank on it. So you got 15, maybe $20, the good, really, really good one. So if we focus on the part, then the customers focus on the part and the providers focus on the part. Obviously, when you show them the actual price, which is like $545, they're going to go ballistic because they know the part. We're both focused on the part. And even the plumber senses like, yeah, why does that thing cost that much? And, he's like, well, that's the price my boss gave me. He starts blaming the boss. He blames the price book. That's the price the price company gave us. It's not me. It's not our boss. Whatever it is, they're going to blame the part.
Cost, right?
So if we're both focused on the part, shifting the focus onto the people is an emphasis that makes the thing of more value. So if somebody says, what do you say when the part shouldn't, that part shouldn't cost that much. Like, how much does the part cost, Donald? It shouldn't cost that much. Would it be good to focus back on the people at that moment when people are focused on the part? When you shift the focus onto this person with their family going through the divorce and things like that, right? Would it be wise to say, John, this is not about the part. It's about making sure that you can go back to your normal life and make sure you can handle those challenges. This challenge, it's the service you're providing, my service, a relationship we have to get this thing fixed, and you're focused on the people again. So how important is focusing on people when you're trying to get to like a price objection or something like that?
It's vital. What am I supposed to do in that moment, right? Give them like you said, right? The old, oh yeah, it's just the price that was made for me. I'm supposed to come up with all these excuses, right? No, people are looking to understand. Like, plumbers, please understand that, okay? When you run into a price objection, okay, they're just looking for you to help them to understand. They're going to be shocked and surprised. Just translate that in your mind as them saying, please help me to understand because I don't get it, right?
Right.
I can't go into, oh yeah, the part's going to be I don't really mind it, right? The price of the part doesn't matter to me. I can tell them or not, right? In this service, those parts are included. The parts are free, right? That's not the part that we're focusing on. We're focusing on the service that's coming along with that part, right? And especially when you're running into, one of those situations where they were maybe looking to get estimates at first, right? It should be obvious and apparent why there's a price difference between me and the other guy, right? Because I care so much about them and their family. The health and safety, quality and reliability. I have shown and demonstrated with pure motives that I actually care about those things, not the dollar, that it should just be apparent. I can't tell you how many times I've had customers just hit it off with me through magic moments and customizing things to fit them, where they say, okay, let's get it done. And I have to go, well, hold on a second, Joe. We got to go over the price. We got to get there first. They're already bought in before we've ever even talked about dollars,
What would you say to service providers who do, like I said, I'm really good with people, and I do make good friends with my customer, but they don't. The business part is left behind. You and I both seen people who are really good people who really connect with people in an emotional level, but they wind up doing the work for free or not at all. They wind up getting turned down. There's a business part of it, and there's the people part of it, right? There's the technical part, the people part, and the business part. That's the three elements of it, right? We do have to get back down to the business part of it. The transition from the business, is it possible to take the people part and mix it with the business part to make sure that not only do I care about you, but the business is really my team, and that's how we care about you with this warranty and things like that. Is that important that we're able to mix those two things together? So moving from technical to people, you're in the middle with the people. Now you got to transition from people to business. That's a really interesting concept, right? Should we mix the people with the business part to make sure that everybody understands that the business is about people too? It's not about
Absolutely.
just the quote unquote logo on the back of my truck or something like that. What do you think of that?
Right. You have to incorporate those, right? You can't just be all play and you can't just be all business. You have to find that way to balance that out, right? And again, you're a service provider that's showing up to somebody's home and they're getting to know you a little bit, right? And starting to understand that you represent pure motives and values.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's not the only question in their mind. It's not just about, is this the right plumber? They're also wondering if this is the right company that I'm doing business with, right?
Yeah.
How were they ever supposed to know?
Good
Just
point.
through osmosis? No, you have to show up and represent your company, and you have to drop these things on them. One of my favorite things about working for Service MVP is that, we do things the right way no matter what, right? Integrity is vital here. There can never be dishonesty, eh, because at the end of the day, right, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, who has to stand by what I did, said, and promised on that day, right?
Good point.
Service MVP is the one who's gonna be here to have your back, right? I hope that I'm here for years to come, but should something happen to me, you're still in good hands, right? And that's the peace of mind that people want with a
When you
company.
consider the company, it's other people that are here in case I have to go on a vacation or in case something happens to me and I get injured or something like that. It's the support of everybody standing behind it, not just the one person there. Well, we're going to be answering some more questions. Just so you know, we're streaming this on multiple platforms. So if you do have a question, just type it into the comments and we will ask the question. So whenever we have a question come up, we'll go ahead and answer it right toward the end of the show. We're coming to the end of the show here, Donald. So the magic moments where we do all that, connecting it to the solution. Donald, is there anything else you'd like to add to this to kind of give people encouragement about focusing on away from the parts and into the people, bringing the people and the business together? What other kind of comments would you like to add there about this whole thing? Kind of sum up the whole show today.
Stop chasing the dollar, guys. Stop trying to find crafty ways to make more money, okay? You would be surprised the more that you lean into asking those open-ended questions, right? With the motive that you want to understand the client and find solutions to not only fix the problem that they're coming out for today, that you got called for today, right? But finding why that happened, how this is impacting their family, so that way you can then present them with solutions that's going to solve the problem now, prevent more problems in the future, and then impact their lives with, again, health and safety, quality and reliability. If you focus yourself in that, you will be astonished by the results that you get from that.
Well, Donald, it's been a great podcast here today, a special 1 hour streaming podcast. I do have a question, though, from the audience. The question is, what if you're socially awkward and you feel uncomfortable connecting with people? How do you take somebody who maybe wasn't raised in a way that they naturally connect with people? How do you overcome that fear that you might get rejected and all that part of it there, or just the fear of that you're socially awkward. You might look stupid or ask a dumb question or say something dumb to people. What do you think? How do young people break through on that, or old people too?
Well, I'll tell you the same thing that somebody told me, Joe.
What's that?
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Mm.
Okay? If you don't want to be uncomfortable and you don't want to talk to people, you probably shouldn't be in the home service business because the people is the most important thing of what we do. We're going out here to help people. So we have to talk and understand them. And while you're going through that uncomfortability, my struggle was, man, there's a lot that people do, right? I was so young. I had never experienced life like these people that I'm working for had. So I felt that because I lacked interest about myself, I wasn't an interesting person, that I could never connect with them. And then I learned, hey, silly, stop trying to be interesting and just be interested in them. Ask open-ended questions to understand. If you don't know things, guess what? Now's your chance to learn. If somebody's telling me about their trip to Rome, okay, I can ask what that was like.
So don't talk about how much you like Rome. So I think the part that would make us nervous and uncomfortable is if we thought we had to guide the conversation, where really we just ask a question, let the client take it from there. Would you say that's the key to it?
Absolutely. At that point, you're almost turning the client into they get to make recommendations to me now, right? I'm not just recommending things to them and telling them what they need, right? Now they get to tell me how awesome an event was that they went to. And I can say, oh, what did you do? What was your favorite part? Oh, I've never been. I'd love to go.
What kind of food do they have there?
Oh, if you do go, you have to go check this out and see this place and all these things. And I can thank them for sharing that and write that down, you know, maybe put it on my vision board for something I'd like to do one day, right?
I mean, if you think about it, I think when you get nervous and you have anxiety, you're probably making the conversation too much about yourself,
Right.
and not enough about learning about other people. If you think about it, you got the transportation. What was it like to get around Rome, or what was it like when you went to Minnesota? It was really cold outside. How did you go? How did you get from one building to the other? And they explain about the little rabbit trails they got between each building and cold weather in Minnesota. And what kind of food did they have there? What did you guys find any good restaurants when you were there? Transportation, housing. Where did you guys stay? Where did you guys sleep? Was the room comfortable? Did the hotel, was it a good hotel? What hotel would you recommend if you went there? Different things like that. Well, Donald, I think we've come to an end here. Do we have any more questions from the audience at this point? No more questions from the audience. Donald, they always say a great podcast starts on time, but even a greater one ends on time. So we're going to try and do that right now. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Don't forget to go on all the social media platforms. We are on X. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We are also on many different other platforms. What else is there? I don't know. But don't forget that we do have the book, What Should We Do? If you'd like a copy of the book, we will give you this book for free. Go to book.servicemvp.com and you can get a free copy of the book. All you got to do is pay for postage. We'll be happy to send one to you directly from us. You'll even get an autographed card with my name in it. So thank you, Donald, for joining us. And thank you, everybody, for watching us. We'll see you guys next time on the Service MVP podcast.
Thanks, guys.